Hey, what's up, guys? It's Pompey from No Coast. I'm here in Chicago, and I'm just doing a little review of an event called the Big Payback that just went down a couple weeks ago in Champaign, or more precisely in Urbana. Shout out to our friends Rob K and Petty Roosevelt down there. They're doing good work. On this card we had Nick G from down there versus Human from Chicago, Desi Baker from Chicago versus Goose Straight, Black Mage versus Skelly, and Rob was nice enough to send me some preview footage of the top three, which I've just reviewed. So real quick, I'll say what I thought happened, and then I'm gonna go into some depth. Those of you who watch my blogs know I go into a bit of depth, which is, you know, for the battlers as much as anyone. But I felt like Skelly won versus Black Mage, Desi won versus Goose, and Nick G versus Human is like a highly debatable style preference. I would edge it to Nick G. I'll go over why in a minute. So overall, on the setting, I thought it was really cool what they did there. It was a small room, very well lit environment that was at the Urbana-Champaign Independent Media Center. Now, I've been to a couple of Rob K shows, and I know that he has the option of having like a room with 150 plus people in it. So it takes some guts to move into a sort of a more adaptable filming environment for an a cappella battle. And I think as that evolves, so I commend him on doing that. I think many aspects of the film quality, you know, were benefited by that. Going forward, you know, I think it's all about figuring out a balance between like a lively crowd environment and a controlled filming environment. That's, you know, I'm still getting better at figuring that out myself. The angle that I saw, I assume, was the primary, which just showed the battlers and the host, and it looked like there was a backup angle set up that showed the crowd. Quick note, I would personally show the crowd in the main and backup angle. Like, I would just film from that direction and get the battlers with the crowd behind them as the primary means, but I don't know everything about how it was being set up, so we'll see what it looks like when it's finally edited. Alright, so from the bottom up, as we traditionally do these, Skelly and Mage was really the only disappointing battle on this card. Skelly and Mage are two of my favorites from the Champaign scene, and it just felt like they weren't ready. I give it to Skelly because he was a little more ready. For 3-minute rounds, like, that's very difficult to pull off. You might consider that you're not ready to do 3-minute rounds if you can't consistently get through them. I'm gonna pick on Mage especially because I saw him before, and he ended up taking the victory in the tournament battle that I judged live, but he also had some stumbles in that one. He has a very interesting writing style. He's very entertaining. I love his sense of humor, but really the polish is where he needs to come forward. And to Skelly, who I'm picking on a little less, but I'll pick on him a little bit. There is a guy with 1 million views whose name is Skelly. Don't be named Skelly is my advice, and I've told him that directly as well. J Skelly, Skelly Skells, any kind of variation I would recommend, because as you get more established, which I believe that he will, he's got what it takes, that will become more relevant. So off top from Black Mage, he had a really interesting anime scheme. I'm not a huge anime head. I definitely got the Dragon Ball Z references, but I didn't get all of them, but it seemed like it was really well put together. They actually both referenced Majin Buu, who's one of the villain arcs in Dragon Ball Z. I liked Black Mage's variation on that better, because he sets up something about drinking. He says, "My gin, booze," and of course gin is booze. Gin is always booze, but it's just like, I didn't expect it. That whole thing was well put together. The performance intensity wasn't there. It was probably, I'm guessing it was the first battle, and you've really got to come with some intensity in that and set the tone. You can't just go off the vibe of nothing was happening. When it's on you, it's on you. You got to carry the energy. So that's something that people who are more used to writing beats often need to work on is, you're not riding the mood that's in the room already. Like, you got to set the tone. It's all on you. Skelly had a really cool bar. After his opener, he was like, wait, you're a nerd, I'm gonna change my approach. I'm gonna do nerd bars because that's what you do. And you know, he ends up doing Dragon Ball Z scheme as well, like I said. But when he started his change approach scheme, he said it's the same dope but different vein. No, it's the same dope but a different strain. Like, phew. That's a great bar to just frame what comes after it. You know, I like that structure. He had some stumbles as well, not as bad as Mage. I did hear a pacifist pass a fist bar. Like, that's really played out, by the way. If you watch enough battle rap, that one's kind of played out. So if they had both done what I wanted to do, I might have liked Mage's material better because he's got like an intricate yet off-kilter structure. You never know really where he's going. But he needs to get better at editing, structuring his rounds, and just rehearse a lot more. I would love to see this one rematch in a year, to be honest, because it was a good style pairing. I don't think it lined up like it coulda. All right, so the other two battles were fire. Like these were great. Goose versus Desi. Goose starts out by saying like, now you said in this battle blah blah blah, which is a kind of a cliche thing that people do, right? It's like, in this battle you said this, but you should have said that. So he recites this whole bar, and then Desi's like, no, I didn't say that. And Goose is like, yeah, I know you never said that because I never watched anything. Psych. You know, what a bizarre concept, but I thought that worked really well. He ended up doing it in another round as well. I would have only done that once, but good on you for a variation on a cliche, because like I didn't see that coming. I thought that was actually a pretty cool opener. Goose has presence down. Like, he definitely has the salesmanship down. His character doesn't strike me as that unique, but he's definitely got the fundamentals of being a good battle performer down. So I would encourage him to even work, you know, more of his personality into it and get a little more crazy with it now that he's got the fundamentals good. He had this long movie comparison, which happened to be a movie that I hadn't seen. I would have done that later in the round. It was very near to the beginning to have something so drawn out that is like, some people are going to get this, some people wouldn't. Like, let's see. So to Desi, he started out in the first round with a very low amount of energy. Again, probably feeding off the vibe of the room. You can't do that. You got to set the tone. To just come off very quiet from the get-go, it takes a lot of poise to be able to still command attention if you're doing that. He has kind of a suspenseful build to his stuff sometimes, but you know, I would save that for later in the round. He was certainly better on paper. Getting slept on, you know, whether it's due to being, you know, away from his home or his lower presence, probably a mixture of both. Goose's second round was alright. I didn't feel like it was as good as his first and third by any means. He didn't do a whole lot with it, but when I say that Desi is better on paper, let me give you an example. So Goose says something along the lines of like, you remind me of a labia. In other words, you a pussy. Like, that's not really like a double meaning or anything going on there. That's like just a synonym. Like, I just pointed out a synonym to what I wanted to say. Like, that's filler being used as a punch, in my opinion. He references the Conor McGregor versus Mayweather fight, but he just makes a simple comparison. Like, this is like that because you're out of your league in this, like Conor was. To reference something so highly referenced and just to say, and it's like that, you know, because you're gonna lose something, you know. Desi's second. He had a scheme where he was rhyming with Aladdin that was really well done, went on for a long time without a lot of filler. That's something you gotta watch for, because you can rhyme for a long time, but if you're not saying anything worth saying half the time, then it's not nearly as impressive. He had this bird scheme. Shout out Dirtbag Dan. He had a bird scheme that was great. Like Take a Gander, this Goose is straight feminine, and he actually brought back the bird thing in the third round too. His presence got a little better, but I still think, you know, he could have done with some higher energy performance. Goose in the third round, a lot of local references. They were getting him there. I can't really evaluate it. He had a cool closer, like he just starts doing all these hand motions, and then he says, see, I'm miming on him because I ain't got shit to say. Like, now if you haven't watched the battle, like, you probably don't get like how funny that was, the way he pulled it off. But yeah, what a great closer. Good comedic timing, you know, he's got kind of a gift for that. If this guy really works on flexing his pen, he's going to be a serious threat. Desi does a bar scheme in the third round reminiscent of Disaster's third verse Arsenal, but he still said some pretty original stuff with it, so I still count it as pretty dope. Like, I've never heard anyone doing a bar scheme talk about a barnacle, so yeah, for instance, brings back the bird scheme. She'd swallow for a spare O. Let's say I give that one 2-1 to Desi. And they could learn from each other in terms of presence and, you know, writing technicality, respectively. All right, so the headliner, Nick G versus Human. This one definitely earned that headlining spot for me. Great battle. Great battle. You definitely need to see that. So Nick G comes in with a lot of high vocabulary but sort of interchangeable punchlines on a long I would have liked to see him doing more of like developing angles, making extended points as opposed to lines that just make sense in and of themselves followed by another line that's a completely new context. You know, you can stack a lot of punchlines there, and he definitely showed he can do that. But I would like to see him be a little more varied in his approach. Human's first round, he managed to ratchet up the technicality even higher, but he was really rushing it, especially in the first half of the round. He was rushing his delivery. He needs to slow that down. So it's like a lot of people will be able to catch it on film and say he won, but I would say Nick took the first by how much better paced he was, just staying with the rhythm of the room. Some of that could be home field bias, but not all of it, I don't think. So you have an example of how cool Human's writing was. Like, there's a subtle attack versus a Gundam machine laser. I'm tucking the can like I want something to drink later. Like, however you count it, you know, like, Human does multis at another level. Like, he does regular punches on 6 and 7 syllable schemes. All right, round 2. So to give you an example of the way Nick G's multis are sometimes a little forced still, he talks about letting a knife meet his intestine. Don't come to me for sympathy and direction, you know, kind of forcing the stresses of the words and such, like, which you're gonna do some of the time, but it stuck out a little to me. He had some good punches in round 2 too, though. He said, I put one to his temple, like, think about it. Like, I thought it was well structured. Those were kind of few and far between. It seemed like the second round was a little filler heavy from him. Human starts out with a crazy rebuttal. He said something I've never heard anyone say for anything remotely like, which is like, you probably play Immortal Technique when you're trying to have sex. That's crazy. And Human was connecting a little better with the crowd in round 2. So I give Human round 2, 1-1 going into the third, and the third was really debatable. I really liked the second half of Nick's third round. He had some good punchlines. He starts telling stories as opposed to a bunch of sort of interchangeable lines. He had a lot of different types of humor that was kind of lacking before. Human just has like crazy lyrical flourishes in the third round. Like, if I watch this a few more times, I might, you know, switch up the way I thought this one went. Favorite line of his third was, I got a gun so big that you're lucky I left it at home. But yeah, I feel like I need to watch Human's third like 3 or 4 times to really grasp everything that he was doing there, because the patterns were just crazy. But I'm gonna say Nick made the sale. I got Nick 2-1. I think if Human had come in with that same material but like performance energy we saw in like Human versus Rome's, definitely see that one, then, you know, he could have washed this. Yeah, they both showed why they were the main event. Again, shout out from No Coast to my friends in Champaign. Keep doing your thing, guys. Peace.
We go in like a typhoon's hitting. We go in like the drive-thru's busy. We go in like a high-proof whiskey or Ryu's finishing fight moves. You with me? Won't try to describe too simply, just rewind to beginning when your eyes through spitting. I go in like I typed Ulysses and I write too gritty for my time to get me.